Here we go. For you, I try to let it go a little longer. There you go. There it is. It's Courts of Thunder. He's Greg Rosenthal. I'm Glenn Clark. We are 2 rounds in, Greg. We got, by the way, you asked, and we did hear from a number of people who demanded more episodes.
Okay.
Courts of Thunder. We did get a pretty good response on that. So here we are. We're doing it again. We'll try to do at least one more before we get to the end of the tournament. I have mostly enjoyed the way that the first few days have gone. Mostly. We'll talk about that. I think we're just going to do joys and pains for this episode,
okay.
right? Like
I think, yeah. So, break it up between the men's and the women's. This is a good spot for it. Because I always do feel like the tournament really starts in the 3rd round. And that, like, if you're into picking who's going to win, or I'm not allowed to, but you, of course,
yes.
If you're into the gambling of it all, to me, the 3rd, 4th round is the meat of it. Because I think then you can have done some good scouting, that you're getting the better matches. Then maybe the values are a little off of like, yeah, that player should be good, but I've been watching I'm just saying, to me, the tournament kind of really starts in the 3rd and 4th round. So it's a nice little point here.
Well, why don't we start on the men's side, and I'll let you go first.
Oof. Where to start? I'm just trying to leave it for you. I'm what's giving me joy? My take that you shouldn't be doubting Rafael Nadal going into this tournament. I mean, that speaking of odds and whatnot, that this whole idea that there's 3 favorites, but actually Alcaraz is the favorite, and actually Nadal's maybe the 3rd favorite this year, which I don't even need to see him start playing on the clay to say that. I've been through this before. I've been a Nadal hater for so long that he wore me down, and I no longer am. It's silly to root against him going into this. Whatever happens, the magic clay dust is sprinkled on his foot and everything's fine. And oh, by the way, through 2 rounds, that take that I had is looking great, because I haven't checked the updated odds, but to me, he's the favorite because of how he's looked in the first 2 rounds. He looks like Rafael Nadal.
Yes, he has had no issue whatsoever. I'll check on it right now, by the way. What was it? 2-2-2 in his 2nd round matchup.
Similar 3-1-4 in the 2nd round versus Mute. And I actually watched, that was the only one that I watched. I didn't watch Nadal's 1st round match against Thompson, which was 2-2-2. And I swear that first set, Mute was playing well. And that was what got me thinking, watch out. Just I swear this other guy is throwing the kitchen sink at him, and he got 3 games off him. And then that was it for him.
Just for the record, and this, I'm pulling this from FanDuel because that's who I work with. Nadal and Alcaraz both now at plus 350, the 2nd favorites behind Djokovic at plus 175.
Wow. Yeah. See, that's stupid. Now, okay, I haven't, Djokovic hasn't given me joy, but he's looked great too.
Yes.
I thought he had a sneaky tough 2nd round match against Molken.
Oh, you were all over that before the tournament. That was his old coach is coaching him, so that I thought might be a weird thing. And Molken's won a lot of matches the last 3 months. So I just thought, okay, that's gonna be a tough test. He didn't lose a set there. There was 1 tiebreak. So I get it. Djokovic is Djokovic, but to me, Nadal is the favorite, and they seem very much headed for that quarterfinal match. All right. Well, let's go to my first joy. Courts of Thunder. My first joy, you're going to be surprised by, because you would think that it was a pain, but ultimately, in a weird way, I'm kind of glad that Carlos Alcaraz had to stare that down. And by the way, that match was so over that I texted Greg and said, are you prepared to do an emergency podcast right now to talk about what I had declared to be the tournament favorite going out in the 2nd round? And
Carlitos.
And Carlitos. And you were ready to do it. You said, yep, we're ready to go. We were so convinced. As
you were. This was you showing your fan side too. I mean, he was down 1 break in the 4th. He was down What, 2 sets and a break?
You say he was down 2 sets and a break. It was 5-4.
2 sets to 1.
It was right. 5.
No, I get it. But the match, and I get it. I had faith that I figured he's coming out of tough situations so often that at no point did I think, oh, Ramos has got this in the bag. Not that I got to see all of it, but
I say in the bag is one thing. It's just to think otherwise when someone is sitting at 5-4. It's I don't know. It's a weird feeling. And also Ramos Vinolas is the perfect, he is the perfect player that we're talking about, you and I, when we talk about the Spaniards that just, for whatever reason, it all works. I'm like, damn it. This is going to be the guy. He's going to spoil all the fun. So in a weird way, you're right. It's a fan thing. I am not, I don't want to try to pretend like I'm the biggest Carlos Alcaraz fan on the planet, but I think everybody that goes back to last summer knows I fell in love with this kid and just watching him play and what he was capable of doing. I was the one that called him beating the Tsitsipas in New York. I am so over the moon about this kid that, yeah, I think the panic set in for me a little bit in that 4th set. And for him to match it, because it felt, Greg, as I was watching that match, like he was elevating his game and yet still not getting the results in the 2nd and 3rd. It didn't feel like it was a letdown for him. It felt like he knew he had to raise his game, but he still wasn't getting the results. And sometimes when you see that, you worry that there's panic, especially from an inexperienced player. And there's almost an acceptance of, I tried, I raised my game, I came up with spectacular shots, and it still isn't working. And for him to hang in for as long as he did until literally his French Open life was on the line.
Faced the match point. Yeah, he was down 2 sets to 1. And then he faced the match point in that 5-4 game. As I mentioned, I wasn't able to see all of it. Partly I was bringing my children to school during that game, and I was checking the phone. So describe that game to me, because I came back, I saw how well he played in that tie break. That was as well played a tiebreak as you can possibly play. And then he didn't cruise in the 5th set either. It was a tough 5th set, but he won it 6-4. What was that match point, and what was that game?
You're putting me on the spot to try to remember exactly what happened on the match point. And I apologize, Greg. But what I can tell you about that on the whole, I was actually doing my show at the same time. So I apologize to everyone who was watching my show on Wednesday, because I was wildly distracted. By what was going on. But I go back to 2 things. One, he definitely stood it down, and the crowd is very much behind him, but it's not as if this wasn't a situation where they were mad at Ramos Vinolas.
Of course not.
And rooting against him because he was fake. This wasn't a Djokovic reaction. The crowd was behind him, but they were behind everything during the course of that match, and they were greatly enjoying it. So the thing that we've seen from Alcaraz in recent months, where he's been able to go to the crowd in order to get what he needs, the way that we've seen Nadal do it for years, right? Like when he needs it, give it to me. He did that, but it just wasn't working.
But you know what? He said after the match, and I tend to agree, that he wouldn't have won the match if it wasn't for the crowd. And you can say, they weren't anti-Ramos, but Ramos seemed pretty pissed by the end of the 5th set.
By the end of the 5th set, yes.
At some point, you're like, wait, we're in France. I'm playing this other guy. Why is the crowd rooting so hard for Alcaraz? And you know what? That tough shakes. That's what you get for having charisma and having all this talent for Alcaraz. You get this bonus, but it is a real bonus that it's like a sports team who gets to have more home games than away. I mean, I think it's absolutely helped Roger Federer's career. He created that crowd. But it is a unique thing in tennis. And the weird thing about Alcaraz is he has it sort of off the jump, which doesn't really check out. I don't know if he wins this match without the crowd.
You might very well be right about that, right? And it's something that he has been able to.
If he's on court 16 and it's just like 2 guys slugging it out and there's 50 people there, I don't know.
But it's not just, he's already got it all over the world, and it came from that day in New York. That day in New York is the reason why he's got it. That changed everything.
And I'm sure there's a lot of Spanish fans there, and it's obviously
there's of course a lot of Spanish fans. But it also had to be Tsitsipas, right? And it had to be Tsitsipas at a point where we wanted to see him lose. We wanted to see him go down because we were pissed off about the bathroom stuff. And so it all had to conspire. You're right. It's the way he looks. It's all of it, but it all came together perfectly. And for tennis fans, that day in New York said, all right, we're with you now. We are riding with you.
I'm not a hater at all. I'm loving the Alcaraz thing. And I don't think there really are any, but there have been some people, I think, in the tennis community. I listen to the show now, The Body Serve, which is good too. And I think they've just been pointing out, like, just call back just a little bit here. And I thought about that during this match. And the only reason I thought about it was that Tsitsipas match you mentioned. That's one of Alcaraz's 3 or 4, I'm not sure which, Grand Slam victories in his career before this tournament.
Thank you for that reminder.
Total. And it's not it's not hating on him, but when you're in a match like this, and now I look at the draw ahead to spin it forward a little bit, it is just a reminder, like, this isn't easy, nothing's guaranteed, and more to the point, he hasn't done it before, and he's got to go do it. And so I am a little concerned the way he started this tournament. First round was great, and then that. And looking at the next couple of matches, he has an extremely tough draw.
Yes.
He faces Seb Korda, good young American who's looked good so far in this tournament. Got through a tough match with a tricky matchup with Gasquet easily. Korda's the last person to beat Alcaraz and it was on clay. It was in Monte Carlo. That's a tough match. Next after that is potentially Norrie or Khachanov. I think it's going to be Norrie, who's quietly playing very well. Won a tournament the week before the French Open in Lyon and will make you work for it. Is like a much better version of Ramos, if you really wanted to, like, break it down. Norrie's a little boring, but right now he's a top 10 player. If you got through those two, and I'm not totally convinced he does, then you get potentially Zverev, and then you potentially get the Djokovic or Nadal. Wow, if he does prove you right and get through all of this, we'll look back on that match point against Ramos, and we'll look back on this road as extremely tough. But my confidence level is now way down.
I understand it being shaken. The one thing I will try to say is why I'm taking it as a positive. You mentioned this, and you mentioned Tsitsipas. He has been in these 5 sets. This goes back to you and I's eternal argument about why it's so frustrating to me that you were on board with the idea of that Grand Slam should be 3 sets, right? This, to me, is the test of a champion. And Carlos Alcaraz, very early on in his career in these spots, is handling it with aplomb. He is,
no doubt,
coming through in the true test of champions very quickly in big spots. And you're right.
Yeah, but that's one time at the US Open. Now it's a new thing of, like, you just spent 4 hours.
I hear you.
Second round.
And you got to turn around.
If you spend 3 or 4 hours in the third and fourth round, how are you going to look in the quarters against Zverev and Nadal and stuff like that? So we'll see, but you're right. Small sample size. I'm just saying
that also might impact me more if he was 10 years older, right? Like
he should have the energy, but
yes.
But also, like, getting through all these stuff. All right, then I'm gonna go Pain. Let's go.
All right. Hang on a second,
because it connects. It connects so well. You want to hear my argument for best of 3 over best of 5 in a Grand Slam?
Really?
Alex Zverev would be out of the tournament.
I know.
He would be out of the tournament.
Yeah.
You knew where I was going with
right.
this. He lost the first 2
You say
sets.
that. I don't know, man. I was watching that second set when you were trying to get me all fired up about the idea of him losing. I don't know if that was the way that his level rose in that second set, he might have just, if it was a 3-set match, he would have come back and won the
He would have just tried harder. I mean, I don't know. Baez, who's a guy who's won a lot on the challenger circuit, is probably the least known player in the top 45, I would say. That was the first time I really got a chance to watch him. Takes him to 5 sets. It's 7-5 in the 5th, and he faced the match point too. He hits a first serve. That was, Zverev's got a big first serve. Baez, it was returnable though. It was right to his forehand. He missed it. It was out by about a foot. And, like the Alcaraz match, like the Tsitsipas falling down 2-0, like Schwartzman falling 2-0 down. It's such a long rope that these guys who have been there and are more talented really can look, and they're young, especially those guys, can look at the situation and think, like, I got this. And they've all done it. Tsitsipas especially quite a bit, but Zverev's done it before too now. And, that's a great best of 3 argument. Zverev would have been.
It would have been nice. It would have been nice.
So that was painful because I really thought he had a chance, and then that matched up perfectly. The only 2 sets I watched in that match were the second and the fifth, and Baez really had a chance to take him out in the fifth set. He like I said, he got all the way to match point, and then just predictably he fell short.
All right, I'll give you a pain. I mentioned Robin Spinolas, and I was actually, it's a pain for me. I was looking forward to the thing that we talked about in the preview show, that week and a half of watching Carreño Busta play. I don't know why, but I genuinely convinced myself that I was going to look forward to that. And it was more of a pain too, not just that he went out, but as soon as he went out, I just looked at it and said, well, you would think this would set up well for Stevie Johnson, but I've seen this show before. Now you've got a French player in Gilles Simon who's got momentum and gets to play an American with the crowd entirely behind him. And I texted you and I said, Simone's going to win this one too.
I hope you put your money where your mouth on, because he was an underdog against Stevie Johnson. Surprisingly,
I did indeed put my money, because you could see it from a mile away. You could see exactly what was going to happen there. And if it was any other player, if it was any other sort of veteran player that just wasn't French and didn't have that type of support, I think Stevie Johnson would have had no problem. But in that moment,
but I'm going to give you that as my joy. Give me a joy.
Oh, okay. Hang on a second. No, sorry, I wasn't ready. Yeah,
I love stuff like that. Courts of Thunder. I love stories like this, and this is why tennis is great, because on any given day, it could be a player having the best day of his career in any given tournament.
Sure.
And I said the tournament starts in the third round in terms of like, all right, who's going to go win this tournament? But there are stories in the first couple rounds that are fantastic. And that Gilles Simon Carreño Busta match, where Simone won the first 2 sets and then came back from 4-2 down as a massive underdog. This is a guy, Gilles Simon, who today won his 500th career match. That's a lot of matches. That's top 10 among active players. He's part of it. He's just been playing forever. He's 37 years old. That's top 10 among active players. I think only the 3rd French guy ever to get to that much. And him on Chatrier today with a full crowd. I mean, that had to have been the moment of his career. I don't care whatever the best tournament that he won is. And the Carreño Busta match was even better. It was 4-2, and Carreño Busta had a point for 5-2, I believe. And Simone on the trot on one of those small courts wins 4 in a row, and the place is just going absolutely nuts. Gilles Simon had lost 8 straight matches before this tournament, including at Challenger tour level events in round ones. That's not counting some qualifying, but in round ones, 8 straight, including at Challengers. And it's weird, but this is where, again, I don't think without the crowd, he doesn't beat Carreño Busta. And it is a sneaky advantage. It's not talked about that much, but it's like, you have a huge advantage if you're from France or Australia or the US or the UK or even Spain, places where there are a lot of tournaments. That's why
today GoFan had a huge advantage against TFO.
That's why someone like Ons Jabeur, who's coming from a place that never had any tennis tournaments, like it's that much harder to get, not just because you don't have a crowd, but you don't have the support. But I'm not a Gilles Simon fan, but I enjoyed just like sort of watching those scenes after the last couple of years of no crowds and nothing at the French Open, no real buzz really with the French Open. It was nice to see.
You're right about that. And again, my other pain would be, I just wish that Francis TFO could play at the French Open, but
he did. He won a match.
That's where we are. It's an
he won a match. All right, I'm going to give you a joy then because it's connected. And just
quickly. I'm not going to keep hitting the button and everything. We got to get to the women's in a second. Yeah,
we do. But I do want to like look forward in this men's draw in general. And one of the things I like is the bottom half where Goffin is. We came into it saying it's like so wide open, and I'm just going to embrace that because I look at it and I almost can see anyone making a long run. And I would consider Goffin one of those guys. When I saw Goffin play Djokovic in Rome, I want to say, I thought like, oh, like suddenly he's back. And I don't think that was a bad loss from TFO. Like if you told me Goffin is in the final, I just looking at the draw. I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't be like, if you told me Holger Rune beats Tsitsipas and gets to the semis, I'm not going to be totally shocked with Tsitsipas's 4. If you told me Mackie McDonald beats Sinner and gets to the fourth round, or it gets to the quarters, like almost anything in this bottom half. If you told me Medvedev after no buzz whatsoever,
and that's he's played really well given everything that's going on, right?
If you told me he is the one in the final, which coming into this tournament would have been a surprise, like this bottom half is wide open, and Goffin more than anyone, I think, just from the eye test, man, I think he looks really good.
All right, let's have fun with it. Let's take Medvedev and Tsitsipas out of the equation. Let's take Rublev out too. All right, let's take any of the top eights. Let's take Rublev and Ruud out of the equation as well.
Okay.
And let's see if one of us can be a genius. Give me a name that somehow comes through.
Well, then it's Goffin. Yeah,
I
actually think Goffin has a better chance. He has to play Hurkacz next round, tough match, and then Ruud, and then possibly Tsitsipas. So it's not an easy road, but I think he might have as good a chance as any of those top seeds.
I'm gonna go. I was leaning towards Sonego. Sonego's played really well, but you know who's played really well all year, and we're not that far away from doing a show where we were talking about how nobody knows who he is. Kecmanovic. He's played really well. He's played well.
I guess I look at these guys left in the bottom half. So what, there's 16 guys left, right, and I could almost see like 13 of them going far. And I do like that. And I do.
But he'd have to beat Medvedev next round. And Medvedev's
Holger Rune is the other one. Steph has not looked good. Tsitsipas has not looked good. He's lost a few sets along the way. And he has a easy matchup next time against Emer. And then there's this kid, Holger Rune, who has won a lot of matches. Didn't lose a set against Shapovalov in the first round. Didn't lose a set in the second round either. He's a bit of a shit stirrer. I don't know if we need to, if we have a beep, but he's a little bit of an issue. I think he annoys people. He's a lot, as they would say. And so if you're kind of a casual fan, or you're listening to this, circle that Rune Tsitsipas match potentially in the fourth round. Don't be surprised if Rune wins, and I just expect drama. I expect some drama there.
All right, very good. Let's go to the women's side.
Courts of Thunder.
I guess I don't even know how to label this a joy or a pain. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I texted Greg this morning, and I was like, I know it's Ali Risk that we're talking about, but I'm going to be stunned when it's not double bagel. And it wasn't. Ali won 2 games in the second set, so it was love 2. And Greg said something back to me that I was like, oh my God, you're right. Getting the deuce is a victory right now against Iga.
Oh yeah.
Getting the deuce is a miracle at the moment.
Especially on her serve. I could be wrong, but I think one of those games were deuce. I didn't watch on her serve, and I was just like, oh wow, it's deuce. That is the level that she has 15 bagels this season.
It's ungodly.
So to put that in perspective, that is the 6th most amount of bagels in the history of women's tennis for a season.
And we're in May.
So, and one was Serena had 25 once, and then number 2 was 21. So she's well on pace to win, to break through that. And it's special. And I'm into it. Because I think you got enough other storylines in the women's side that's a fun, totally different storyline.
I'm into it. I found myself shaking my head at one point. What's frustrating is today it was completely emotionless, right? And I can only imagine.
It usually is early in the
right?
Her matches so far early in these tournaments are not dramatic whatsoever.
And that's the difficult part about watching it, is what you just alluded to with some of these scenes and these moments. When something's so emotionless, it's tough for me to find joy in it, right?
Okay.
I can acknowledge the amazing nature of what it is that we're seeing, but it's hard for me to embrace the joy that's involved, because it really is just kind of happening.
Right. Well, it's also new. I'm with you. I never like watching Nadal and Djokovic in the early rounds beating up on people. And this is, basically the same, more extreme. The difference is it's new, and it's the streak, and it's also quicker. It's hey, I got 45 minutes between things I have to do for work. I can finish an entire Swiatek match. I can go watch it. It's just it's quick. She plays Kavinic in the next round, who's played pretty well. She beat Samsonova in the first round. I don't think that should be a problem. Can I give you my joy? Because it's connected.
Okay, sure.
All right. Actually, I'm gonna give me it again. Give me it again. It's a pain. Give me again.
Oh, well, then I think I know where you're going.
It's a pain. Courts of Thunder. No, you don't.
Oh,
I regret not bringing up Zhang in our preview.
Okay.
Thing. Like, it hurts me as a person. I after the show, I looked down at my notes and I was like, I didn't bring up Zhang. I didn't bring up Xinwen Zhang, 19-year-old Chinese player who I wanted to just throw out there, be like, if you get a chance, watch her. Because I saw her in Charleston against Sloane do things to a tennis ball that were unforeseen, were unsavory almost. And I was just like, who is this? And just destroy Sloane in that match, the tournament Sloane had won. And I was just like, wow, this, and I was just watch this Xinwen Zhang. And then today she beats Halep, and she's potentially going to play Swiatek in the 4th round. She gets Cornet in the 3rd round, which should be fun. Cornet in her last French Open won a couple big matches, including on Chartrier. Like, that'll be a match. Man, she is a destroyer of worlds. She is a comer. She is tall and hits a big ball and has some serious swag in the way that she talks and the way that she acts on the court. And she could potentially play Iga in the 4th round. And that is the first match where I'm at least, I want to see what happens there. And I think she is someone to watch if you're into women's tennis.
You know what? I have not spent enough time, and I did not see the Halep thing coming at all, of course. But yes, once I saw it, I said, oh my God, this is legit. This is real. So I'm with you on that.
A little bit like Anisimova, in just like, why not her? She might not be ready for it, Zhang. She's 19. She hasn't been in big spots, but you can kind of like Anisimova. I feel like the first time you saw her, you're like, she will be there eventually at some point in the upper reaches of the game. And man, she just crushes the ball.
Well, I know you've got another pain, so
yeah, sure. What, you want me to talk about Ons going out?
I mean,
Ons Jabeur.
Yeah, I do.
I shout out to our listener who pointed me to the WTA website and ATP, where you can put a microphone, there's a little microphone next to their names so that you can pronounce the name correctly. I've been mispronouncing like one of my favorite players.
By the way, if I'm getting stuff, please feel free to tell.
It's a Ons, not Ons. She went out quickly, and this is what happens. And this is why, like, if Alcaraz loses next match, I'm not going to be shocked, because I think being in these situations for a first time is difficult. And she was the favorite on the bottom half of the draw and went out quickly. She went out quickly to a player, Magda Linette, who didn't even back it up and win a set in the next match. And I didn't see it because it was at 2 a.m. Eastern time. And once I saw the result, Pacific time, I had no desire to see it. But it's unfortunate. But this is why it's tough to be at the top of the game.
Yeah, that's true. It's also a reminder of exactly what, and I get it. Iga has been, it's been Iga proof. But the thing that you and I talked about beforehand, where the way that women's tennis has worked, it's the thing where you think you can just assume. I mean, Ons is out, Halep's out. Like, these are the players that we're talking about as being serious threats. And
right. And we probably were jumping the gun on Halep. She had one good tournament, but otherwise really hadn't had the results. And didn't seem to have the stamina. Here's a stat for you. The top 12 seeds are still in the tournament. Whereas in the women's, it's only 5 of the top 12. And I believe the top 5 from the bottom half all were gone. So that it's very stacked towards the top half of the draw of the tournament. And it's like more things change, the more things stay the same. And yet, like, if I had to pick one half of either draw to watch for the next few rounds, it would be that open bottom half of the women's. I'm very intrigued by it.
Let's talk about it. One, so my pain. Hang on. I went with Zachary, and so I feel quite stupid about that. I had her going on to the final, and you tried to tell me why I would be wrong, and I was wrong. So there's that. Now, as I cover that, I move to the other side, where I'm going to call you out for something you said and give you a joy.
Yes.
We were talking about this text that you sent me last week where you had declared Anisimova as being the next American Grand Slam champion.
I said she would be the most likely pick of an American to win a Grand Slam.
And I said something in the preview episode. I said, well, you just never know when this person might figure out a way to show up and play for a couple of weeks. Do you remember who that person was? And do you remember what you said back to me?
No, I mean, I hope it's not Sloane, because I would never.
It was Sloane Stevens, to which you said, well, let's not get crazy.
Oh, well, I'm glad I don't have to listen to that, because
I meant to pull the audio and I apologize that I didn't. Now,
you're right. You're right.
I'm still not convinced that, Sloane Stevens is going to go win the French Open. Let me make that abundantly clear. And frankly, Diane Parry, who has the crowd firmly behind her, and who, after she got smoked in the first set by Krejcikova, and I thought, okay, Krejcikova is right back to being who she's going to be at the French. I actually watched that match, and Krejcikova, without breaking a sweat, just demolished Diane Parry in the first set. And all of a sudden, Diane Parry has rolled and won 4 straight sets and finds herself in the third round. And
I don't know if she was in the top 200 before this, but her second match, Parry, was against a very informed player, Osorio, who's won a tournament this year from Colombia. And that one, backing it up, winning 3-3. That's a good matchup versus Sloane. But Sloane, peak Sloane is a joy to watch.
And in that second round against Kirstea, after she dropped the first set, she was methodical. I mean, just picked her apart over the course of the next 2 sets. I'm trying not to get carried away about it, because I think it's also entirely possible she turns around and loses Diane Parry. And for as much as you say it's open down there, there's still a lot of good players.
I think I think there's a lot of good players, but I also just think there's about 10, 8 realistic options who could go all the way to the final. But I include Sloane in that. That's the match I watched most complete from beginning to end. And I would say Sloane played about as well in that match as anyone's played in any match. By the way, I know she lost the first set 6-3, but Kirstea was redlining. They were both playing really well, and Sloane really kept with it and looked awesome. She's got Parry, then potentially either Teichmann or Azarenka, and then potentially, and I really think this could happen, a Sloane versus Coco quarters.
Oh, it definitely could happen. There's no question about that. It could happen. Coco's just got to keep playing steady, but sure. Kai Kanepi,
Coco got the best draw of any top 20 seed. 2 pretty good matchups. She has Kanepi in the third round. Look, Kanepi beats seeded players at Grand Slams. That's what she does. She beat Muguruza in the first round, so that is not a gimme, and certainly Coco could lose that. But then you have either Mertens or Gracheva in the next round. That is about as forgiving a path to a quarterfinal, considering who Coco's played so far too, as you could ask for. And she hasn't looked amazing, but I think she could get there. It would not surprise me. In fact, if I had to pick it, I think it would be Coco versus Sloane in the quarters, which would be cool.
Now, you got something else here? Because I got one more thing that I think we need to
go for it. I want to hear where you're at with Paula.
Oh, I feel good. I mean, I should drop the set, but I'm not going to lose my mind about it. I feel good about Paula.
Tough draw, man. I mean, I was saying how it's wide
open,
draw,
but for it to be a tough draw, you have to get me to feel confident. These are all good players, but tell me the one that you feel confident about.
Okay, I get it, but when I just rolled through who Coco has to be or who Sloane has to be, and then you look at Badosa, let's go through it. Kudermetova this round, playing quite well, 29 seed, beat Naomi earlier this year, tough match. Then the winner of Keys and Rybakina, and then either Sabalenka or Kosakina. Those are 3 very tough matches.
No question.
To win all 3, that's tough.
Yes, it's tough. You're 100% right that it's tough, but there's nothing. Is there a reason you don't think that she should be favored to win all of those?
No, but I think they're all a little closer to 50-50 than you would like, and just by the odds.
Okay, all right, I'll buy that.
Maybe they're 60-40, but she's another one who, she's got that big seed next to her name, but she doesn't have the results either at the Grand Slams yet that she wants.
Nope, not at all. All right, I want to talk about Naomi, and then we have to talk about Wimbledon because of it, right? Like that's the two kind of go hand in hand. I know I can't imagine you're very disappointed about what you saw from Naomi against Anisimova. It's a hell of a player. It's clearly not her surface.
Yeah, I did tape that one and wake up and watch it. Yeah, I don't think she played that poorly. I think she played against a top 10 quality player right now, and Naomi's not there on clay, certainly. Right. But if it was different, she could have had a better run. Like if she got Coco's draw, I honestly think she probably would have made the quarters or whatever, but she didn't, and that's how it goes.
All right, let's talk about the Wimbledon thing then. I don't want to. I think sometimes people say things and you know what it is they mean, but you also know how it is they sound. And I can certainly understand the defensiveness that we're seeing and the pushback that Naomi's getting for using the word exhibition in describing Wimbledon and why she might not play.
Because and we haven't covered this on the show,
right? That's true, because
the Grand Slams, the ATP, both tours, ATP WTA decided not to have rankings points at Wimbledon in response to Wimbledon's decision not to let Russian or Belarusian players into the draw, which is all just a reminder that tennis is stupid and messed up and not in like a million different factions are running it, and it's stupid.
And the world is stupid too. Like there's a lot going on here.
Right, but no other sport is stupid in the way that tennis is stupid. That like these Grand Slam tournaments can just make decisions willy-nilly,
arbitrarily, right?
And then the players have nothing to do with it, and then there's the tours who have nothing to do with it, and the Grand Slams are separate, but then the actual individual Grand Slams are separate from the other ones. It's just stupid, and Wimbledon is stupid. So
look, I think you and I agree about one thing. I understand the awkwardness of what's going on. It's far easier for the World Cup to ban Russia and everyone to be on board with it, right? But there are, even when that decision was made, there are still athletes that are affected by it that have nothing to do with this, right? But it's easier to make that decision because you're arbitrarily banning you're banning an entire country. You're saying, we're not gonna have the flag, we're not gonna do any of that, but you're still banning them. This was met with greater hostility because we're talking about individual athletes. It's incredibly difficult because I do think inherently there is the attempt to try to do the right thing and to not allow Vladimir Putin to use a Russian player winning Wimbledon as some sort of propaganda. And I don't want this to be the case. I want everybody to be able to play at Wimbledon, but I don't think they're inherently evil for what it is they're attempting to do.
No, it's just kind of silly. I mean,
I agree.
If Medvedev wins this tournament, or Azarenka for that matter, like it's gonna make any difference one way or another.
I agree. We also know that we're dealing with a madman who will somehow attempt to use it for propaganda within whatever. There's very difficult things going on here. So the decision's made. Okay, we have to respond somehow, some way. What we're going to do is we're going to pull the points. Fine, right? I guess I get it. I guess I do. If not everybody can participate, how is it fair to these players that aren't allowed to play that you're competing for points within the tour and you're not allowed to be part of it? Is it the best thing to do? I don't know. I don't have all the answers. Greg, some of these things I have to admit, are above me. But I get it. I think that it's an attempt to do the right thing in this situation. I don't really care if Naomi Osaka plays at Wimbledon or not. The awkward part that we have to talk about it is she's not very good there.
But she didn't say that she's not playing there. She just said in the aftermath of a loss that, without the rankings points, it's kind of like an exhibition. Obviously most players disagree. Maybe in her heart of hearts, she probably disagrees on some level, but she's also right on some level. And unlike most players, she said as much, like the rankings points are like really important to her. And I think that's true for most players, but they don't just like say it. And so if she's on the fence of
but
playing,
do you really believe that players think that rankings points are more important than the opportunity to call yourself a Wimbledon champion?
No.
Yeah.
No. It's
right.
not about the rankings points. It's about the money. But it's not as much about the rankings points. But rankings do mean a lot. You know, they lead to money. People have a lot of bonuses tied up in that, and people have a lot of rankings goals. And so the rankings in general mean a lot. But yeah, just taking away one tournament, I don't think almost anyone is not going to play Wimbledon because of the rankings point things. And I don't think anyone's saying that that's going to happen. Naomi, I think, is unique in that it'll probably be a factor in her decision. But ultimately, I kind of expect her to play anyway. So it might.
I kind of expect her to play too. What I'm going to say, I don't think she meant harm in describing it like an exhibition tournament. I don't think she meant any harm with that. But I also understand the defensiveness of players like Andy Murray, who respond by saying, you know, what?
Like, right. And to be clear, Naomi wasn't the only one. And I don't even, he maybe wasn't responding directly to her. Benoit Paire said something similar about it being an exhibition. But I understand why everyone would get their backs up, especially if they're from the UK. But it is kind of funny that I mean, it is kind of an exhibition.
You're not ever going to get me to agree with this. Is Wimbledon that we're talking about.
But it gets to the point I was saying that this sport is just silly because like rankings points what are they? Like what now we could have like separate rankings, ones that count Wimbledon, ones that don't. Like it's just so who's in charge here? No one's in charge. And I'm with you. I don't know if that was the right thing to do, but I know I really do feel it was the wrong thing to do for Wimbledon to act unilaterally to do what they did. And so if both tours felt like they needed to respond in some way, I respect that, because I don't think it was about anything other than the moral, like what they believed was right, you know?
But I go back to, I think Wimbledon did the wrong things, and oddly for the right reasons they did the wrong things, right? Like that I think that there was a good intent involved with the decision. I don't think
I don't.
Do you think they were just trying specifically to keep Daniil Medvedev out of the tournament?
I mean, I think ultimately they were just doing what the British government told them to, and that's basically what they've said.
Right.
So they've kind of copped to like, well, we didn't really decide, we're being made to do it. And it's like that government, just like our government, plenty of times, like I'm not giving you any benefit of the doubt that you're doing much for the right reason.
I understand that thought process, right? I think inherently, what can we attempt to do in any way to make a statement that this isn't okay, right? Like that, in generically speaking, I understand the thought process and why you would think that was a good thing to do. When you look at what you're actually doing and you say, really, what, you're just gonna ban these players from playing that have nothing to do with anything that's going on. Yes, I'm with you. I can't support that in any way. And to say, yes, this is the fallout from that and just keeps going. It's
messy. It's messy. Let's not let them ruin our nice little
certainly not ruining it by stretch of the imagination. No. I wish it wasn't happening. I wish this didn't come up during the French Open, right? Like I wish this had happened a week ago. And so I wouldn't be seeing headlines about it and tweets. Like I just wish that we could be talking about the tennis and nothing else. That would be what I would prefer.
Let's do some rapid fire stuff before we go. Just any sort of like looking ahead. Okay. If you have any other thoughts. We mentioned, I'm going to throw one out here. Courts of Thunder. Anisimova looked really good both of the first two rounds.
Yep.
Plays Mukova, who is beat your beloved Zachary.
Yep.
And Mukova is a tough match. And if Anisimova gets through, it's a tough draw. She plays then the winner of Bencic, Leylah Fernandez, which is a great little third round match. And then potentially Kerber. And I've never been a Kerber fan, but the way that she won the tournament on like the greatest championship point winner that I've ever seen the week before, out of nowhere, a 250, and the way that the crowd got behind her beating this Polish one, Frech, in the first round, and the crowd was just crazy. And a lot of people, I didn't get to see all of it, but I saw the very end, thought it was like the match of the tournament, and some of the match points that she saved. I'm kind of digging Kerber's vibe here.
Okay.
And I hope she makes a little run. But I really think Amanda's got a real chance here for the finals.
I mean,
she's got a real chance to lose next round too. So it's very tricky on the women's side. But if I had to pick one from that entire side, I actually think she might be the favorite. There is no favorite. There is no favorite. Well, that's what I mean. Like, you would take the field 15 times over any one person, but who would be your other choice?
Let me try to figure out who the actual answer is to that question.
I mean, Bencic is the highest seed, and fine. She just beat Andreescu. She's got more wins on clay this year than usual. She won Charleston. Like, she could be another option. There's Kerber. There's Sloane. There's Azarenka. There's Coco. Like, there is no favorite.
By the way, you are correct. It's Anisimova is the favorite.
Oh, wow. But what's the number? It's probably
it's 17, but that's the same number as Paolo, who's the second favorite, right? Like, it's and by the way, this is a statement about Iga. Iga's at minus 220. Paula and Anisimova are both 17. And then Coco, by the way, and Bencic are 26. And Sabalenka.
And that's sort of what I was getting. It doesn't surprise me. You just like watch her play, and this was her big breakout tournament. She made the semifinals, really had a good chance to beat Barty in the semifinals, and showed her lack of big match experience at that time. That is a sliding doors match, by the way. Like, if she could have just finished that out, I'm trying to think if she served for that match. Barty ends up winning her first Grand Slam instead. That was a crazy match, but I could just see Amanda going. She's got kind of the eye of the tiger.
I'm with you. I mean, she's playing great, but again, this is that, Layla's played really well too, right? Like, sure. Layla's looked great through 2 rounds, and I could see her making a run. You are 100% right that it's almost foolhardy to try to say there's a favorite at this point, because
no, but if you do happen to kind of like watching the American women bash it around, we could see a Sloane Coco quarters, and the winner of that plays Anisimova. Now I'm getting way ahead of myself.
Yeah, you're getting way ahead of yourself, but that's all right. That's all right. We'll enjoy it. I think I'm good. I think we've covered. I think we covered everything we need to cover. All right. We'll come back maybe after the weekend and see where we are heading into next week. Greg Rosenthal, appreciate you, pal. Appreciate all of you. Please continue to let us know that you're enjoying it and you're digging it, and that you want us to do more. For Greg, I'm Glenn. This has been Courts of Thunder.